Reigning UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya retained his 185-pound title by defeating former division title holder Robert Whittaker in UFC 271 pay-per-view main event last night, Saturday, February 12, 2022, inside the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. It was a close fight, but the judges sided with the champion.
I knew he was going to bring everything. Because last time I took everything away from him. So he had nothing to lose. And like I said, I'm the champ. You want it? Come get it.
The unanimous decision victory puts the last style bender up 2-0 over the Reaper, so we're unlikely to see a third fight unless something crazy happens, and it often does in this sport. That means Adesanya will likely move on to fight surging contender Jared Cannonier later this year. Cannonier has also competed at UFC 271 in what was widely considered to be a title eliminator bout against veteran contender Derek Brunson. Despite an uneven first round from the former heavyweight, Cannonier settled down and landed fight-ending elbows in the second stanza, his 10th career victory by way of knockout. The champ stated in an interview, he's a beast in the division. He's the dark horse in the division. He's the guy everyone is sleeping on, but you can't sleep on him because he'll get you put to sleep. I think he's the guy, the second most dangerous guy in the division behind myself. I look forward to fighting him after his next fight. Cannonier has now won 5 of his last 6 with 4 knockouts. Despite the lofty praise, the 37-year-old killer gorilla had little to no competition outside of Brunson coming into UFC 271. He's the only fighter currently ranked in the middleweight top 5 who hasn't been defeated by Adesanya. Sean Strickland, currently sitting at number 6, turning away Jack Hermanson at UFC Vegas 47, is now the winner of 6 straight, but his output inside the cage has been a little underwhelming over the last couple of fights. In addition, middleweight newcomer Alex Pereira, who holds 2 victories over Adesanya on the kickboxing circuits, including a brutal knockout, has just 1 fight under the UFC banner and will need to get past fellow Brazilian bruiser Bruno Silva before we can talk about a Poatan title shot.
Hey, Dana, look at me. Hey, quit distracting Dana. Get Dana. Get him. Dana, I want that shot next. I get the shot next. It's me. Nobody else. Me.
Cannonier called his shot back in December. Brunson wrote on social media, made a title push, number 3 versus number 4 in the world. I came up short. Life lessons. I'm all good. Sad, but life will give you these moments. I'll pick myself up for one more fight. Blessings all. Brunson is expected to retire after his next fight. The middleweight division appears to be back on track, and the Adesanya versus Cannonier title fight is the kind of matchup that the UFC fans can get excited about. This is a case of precision versus power, but more importantly, it's not a rematch. Khamzat Chimaev title fight. Dana White has implied that the winner of Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 273 is likely next in line for the world title fight. A fight between Chimaev and Burns has been rumored for several weeks before being confirmed by Dana White last week on the Underground. And yesterday, the UFC officially announced the fight during the UFC 272 broadcast. Burns and Chimaev will be meeting next month at UFC 273, and from the sounds of it, there could be a lot riding on the fight. Speaking to reporters during the UFC 272 post-fight press conference, White said that it makes sense for the winner of Chimaev and Burns to receive a world title shot. Kamaru seems to think differently.
I mean, this guy hasn't even fought in the top 10. He hasn't even beat anyone there. So, I mean, Covington is still standing in the way. So I think there's still a couple more fights that he has to get to. But like I said, I love to compete. When that fight presents itself, I'll be here to compete.
Burns already had a shot at Kamaru Usman last year at UFC 258, with Usman defeating his ex-teammate via TKO. Meanwhile, Chimaev has already put Usman on notice that he expects to be sharing the octagon with him in the near future. Chimaev is yet to face even the slightest waft of adversity during his remarkable UFC start, only being hit with 1 significant strike in 4 fights. The Phenom currently has a professional MMA record of 10-0. Gilbert Burns is ranked number 2 at welterweight and has won 7 of his last 8 fights. As a welterweight, Burns is 6-1, with each bout taking place in the UFC. The lone loss was the aforementioned one to reigning champion Kamaru Usman at UFC 258 last year. If the winner does become the number 1 contender, that does not necessarily mean they will challenge Kamaru Usman. This is because Usman is expected to defend against Leon Edwards this summer. In fact, should Edwards unseat Usman, the Burns-Chimaev winner may have to wait their turn after a potential Edwards-Usman rematch under this scenario. That said, If Chimaev does to Gilbert Burns what he's done to all the others he's put in his path, it seems quite possible that Boers could eat up Edwards' spot as the next challenger for Usman's crown, or maybe Conor McGregor. But Khamzat won't be too upset if the UFC opts to give Conor McGregor a welterweight title shot before him. Former UFC 2 division champion Conor McGregor recently stated that he's eyeing a clash with the 170-pound title holder Kamaru Usman upon his return to competition this year, an idea that UFC President Dana White didn't immediately dismiss. Although Usman laughed off McGregor's call-out, it undeniably would be the biggest fight of his career business-wise, something Chimaev wouldn't fault Usman for accepting.
If you want to be back, if you need some help, we're here. If you want to fight Usman, I think they can. It maybe can happen because the guy is so famous. They can make money, good money, both. That's why if they want to fight both, I think UFC want to make that shit.
Do you think Khamzat is ready for a title shot? Or should he face a few top contenders before he faces Usman? Drop your opinion in the comment section down below. Dana White talks about Jake Paul. Jake Paul versus Dana White is one of combat sports rivalries we didn't see coming a few years ago. However, after Paul made himself one of the more bankable stars in boxing due to a string of circus fights and KOs over MMA champions, he and the UFC president have gone at it over several issues. Paul has been courting MMA fans by rallying against White and the UFC's subpar fighter pay. This argument devolved into a spat over drug use, with White offering to get tested for cocaine in exchange for Paul being tested for steroids. White was recently asked about Paul on the Full Send podcast. Specifically, he asked what Paul would need to do to earn White's respect.
Well, it's not that he doesn't have my respect.
Yeah.
I don't even know the kid. At the end of the day, I don't even know the kid. And you know what? To be honest with you, I'll tell you right here, right now, this is the last time you'll hear me talk about him. I'm done with it.
That's it.
I put out the challenge. He said, you do coke. I said, I think you use performance-enhancing drugs. Let's do it. He never responded to it, so fire away, kid. Do your thing. Listen, I'm sitting here. I'm arguing with this kid that doesn't fight for me and is never going to fight for me. So what's the point in even he and I going back and forth with each other?
The podcast host then asked White what would happen if Paul told him he wanted to fight in the UFC.
I don't know. I don't think that would ever happen, but listen, I never say never anymore,
That'd be pretty.
I didn't think
crazy.
Floyd and Conor would end up, or I would end up doing any of my guys versus Floyd, because that just makes absolutely no sense.
So it seems despite White's obvious dislike for Paul, he won't rule out the opportunity to make a buck off the influencer. Seeing Paul appear in the UFC doesn't feel any stranger than former WWE star CM Punk getting a crack in the octagon, or boxer James Toney signing a one-fight deal. What do you think about Jake and Dana's beef? Do you see Paul entering the MMA world someday? Let us know what you think about this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.